Welcome to the Marketing Behind Rapid Growth, the podcast where we explore the strategies, decisions, and growth engines behind some of the world's most successful technology companies. Today we're talking about booking. Picture this. It's 2003. A handful of executives from a fast-growing Dutch startup fly to Florida for one of the travel industry's biggest conferences. They came to learn. Instead, they spend an entire day listening to experts explain, with total confidence, why their business model is finished. The room has spoken. The future belongs to a different approach entirely, and the model this small company has built its future on is being written off as a relic. Two of the company's executives step outside. They need air. They look up, and towering above them is the massive Marriott hosting the conference. And almost as a coping mechanism, they start doing math in their heads. Their company has about 50 employees, and yet, on any given day, they're processing enough hotel reservations to fill a building the size of the one standing in front of them. That's not a company in decline. That's a company the room hasn't understood yet. So they made a decision that would define the next 2 decades. They walked back inside, and they trusted their own numbers over the room's consensus. That company was Bookings.nl. It would soon merge with a UK competitor to become Booking.com, and the choice made outside that Marriott, to reject the conventional playbook and build growth into the architecture of the product itself, is why Booking.com became one of the most dominant companies in online travel. This is the story of how performance marketing stopped being something a company does and became something a company is. Let's start with the problem. Booking.com was actually solving. Back in the mid-1990s, booking a hotel abroad was genuinely painful. You'd consult a printed travel guide, you'd track down a phone number, you'd call a front desk, often across multiple time zones, hoping someone spoke your language and had a room available. It was inefficient for travelers, and it was even worse for independent hotels, which had no easy way to reach an international audience. In 1996, a recent university graduate named Geert-Jan Brunsma looked at this problem and saw an opportunity. He had briefly worked as a hotel night porter, so he understood the operational side of hospitality firsthand. He set up a server under his desk, and he built Bookings.nl. At the same time, American giants like Expedia were expanding aggressively. But here's the thing. They were built for a different market. They focused on large hotel chains and mostly ignored the independent properties that made up the majority of European lodging. And critically, they operated on what's called the merchant model, where the platform charges the traveler's credit card up front and keeps a larger margin. European travelers didn't trust that, and European hoteliers hated what it did to their cash flow. So Bruinsma and the founders of a UK company called Active Hotels made a different bet. They built around what's known as the agency model. Travelers would reserve a room online, but they'd pay the hotel directly when they arrived. For hotels, this was an easy yes. No complicated contracts. No big upfront costs. You logged in, updated your room availability, and paid a modest commission only when a booking actually happened. Active Hotels reportedly went even further, supplying basic internet equipment to properties that didn't even own a computer yet, physically bringing analog businesses onto the internet. This created friction-free adoption on both sides of the marketplace, but it came with a cost: thinner margins than the merchant model competitors were running on. And that single trade-off, frictionless growth in exchange for slimmer profit per transaction, is the seed that everything else in this story grows out of. Because if you're operating on thinner margins, you cannot outspend your competitors on marketing. You have to outbuild them. And that's exactly what happened next. The decisive strategic move Booking.com made wasn't a marketing campaign. It was a decision to treat marketing as part of the product's actual foundation, not a function bolted on afterward. Here's what that looked like in practice. In the late 1990s, Bruinsma realized that ranking well on early search engines required something most competitors weren't doing. You couldn't just have one homepage and hope for the best. So he insisted that every single hotel on the platform get its own dedicated page. Think about what that means at scale. Thousands, and eventually millions, of individual pages, each one built to be discovered by search engines and matched to specific traveler intent. When Google AdWords emerged in the early 2000s, Booking.com didn't dip a toe in. It went all in, building bidding systems so sophisticated and so large that it became one of Google's biggest advertisers in the world. And this is where the earlier decision about dedicated hotel pages pays off in a way that's almost elegant. A Russian traveler searching for a hotel in Paris didn't land on some generic English-language homepage. They landed on a dedicated Russian-language page built specifically for hotels in Paris. Intent met relevance, instantly. That's not an accident. That's product architecture doing the work that most companies expect a marketing team to do manually. Alongside paid search, Booking.com built out a massive affiliate network. Early on, Bruinsma approached the leading hotel directories in Amsterdam with an offer: let us power your booking system on the back end and we'll split the commission roughly evenly. It was an if you can't beat them, join them strategy. And it eventually grew into a network of thousands of partner sites, quietly funneling demand into the platform without the company needing to spend heavily on brand advertising to generate that traffic. So now you have a company acquiring high-intent traffic through search and through a vast partner network. But acquiring traffic is only half the battle. If that traffic doesn't convert, you've just paid for nothing. This is where Booking.com's obsession becomes almost legendary in growth circles. Knowing their margins were thinner than rivals like Expedia, the product team became fixated, and that's really the right word, fixated on conversion rate optimization. Here's the insight that drove it. Booking a hotel online strips away all the social cues you'd normally have in the physical world. You don't walk past the building and see how busy it looks. You don't get a gut sense of whether other people trust this place. Just like you'd hesitate to walk into an empty restaurant, travelers hesitated to book a hotel with no signal that anyone else valued it. So the team studied consumer psychology deeply. Reportedly, they pulled from books on persuasion and even from research on dating and attraction to understand how people actually make decisions under uncertainty, and they translated that research directly into the interface, signals showing how many times a property had been booked recently, indicators showing how many other people were viewing the same room right now, subtle scarcity and social proof built directly into the page. Nearly every element on the site, down to the color of the booking button, was subjected to constant A/B testing. At any given moment, 2 visitors to Booking.com were probably not seeing an identical page. The product was in a permanent state of experimentation. And just as important as what they built is what they refused to build. While competitors raced to become one-stop travel shops, bundling flights, rental cars, vacation packages, Booking.com stayed narrow. They concentrated on the one thing they were already winning at, which was accommodation, and they poured every ounce of marketing and engineering resource into being the best in the world at that single category. Focus in this case wasn't caution, it was leverage. Now, by 2004, the broader industry landscape was shifting. Priceline.com was struggling badly in the European market. Its well-known name-your-own-price model, where customers bid blind on travel deals, simply wasn't resonating with European consumers. Priceline's M&A lead at the time, a man named Glenn Fogel, who today is the CEO of Booking Holdings, recognized an opportunity and moved fast. In quick succession, Priceline acquired Active Hotels in 2004 for roughly $161 million, and then Booking's BVI in 2005 for roughly $133 million. The two were merged into a single entity, Booking.com. The combination paired Active Hotels' affiliate strength and UK market position with Bookings.NL's search expertise and reach across continental Europe. And notably, the founders and existing management were left with real operational independence to keep running the business their way. Expedia, meanwhile, had actually circled both companies earlier and walked away. They were anchored to their high-margin merchant model, and they didn't see the value in a lower-margin, friction-free approach. That hesitation turned out to be enormously costly. Backed now by Priceline's capital, Booking.com's performance marketing engine accelerated hard, and it helped transform the parent company, now known as Booking Holdings, into one of the most valuable travel companies on earth. So what do we actually take from this story? First, align the product with reality, not dogma. The entire industry was chasing high-margin merchant economics. Booking.com listened instead to what European travelers and independent hoteliers actually wanted, and it accepted lower margins in exchange for frictionless adoption and scale. The room at that conference in Florida was wrong, and the founders trusted their own data over the consensus. Second, Let marketing shape the product, not the other way around. Booking.com didn't build a product first and hand it off to a marketing team afterward. They built enormous numbers of localized individual hotel pages specifically to capture long-tail search demand. The product itself was a direct expression of the growth strategy. Third, conversion is a competitive weapon. If your margins are thinner than your rivals, superior conversion isn't a nice-to-have, it's your path to survival. By applying real behavioral psychology to design and by testing relentlessly and without exception, Booking.com extracted more value from every single visitor it had already paid to acquire. Fourth, find your gold medal product. Focus is leverage. Booking.com spent years perfecting one category before it ever considered broadening into wider trip planning. Trying to do everything too early dilutes both your spend and the quality of what you're building. And fifth, know when to add the chandelier. For years, the company relied almost entirely on the lasers of performance marketing, precise, high-intent demand capture. But as that channel began to saturate, they recognized that lasting advantage required something more, the chandelier of brand, emotional connection, direct traffic that doesn't depend on winning an auction every single time. Arbitrage works for a while. Durable power needs more than that. Booking.com didn't become a travel powerhouse by luck, and it didn't become one through a single brilliant campaign either. It won by building a system where product and marketing were never separate disciplines to begin with. Understanding user intent, removing friction wherever it appeared, and converting traffic more efficiently than anyone else in the category. For founders and growth leaders listening today, the lesson is direct. Real, durable scale comes when your marketing strategy isn't a layer you add on top of the product. It's built into the product itself. This was the marketing behind rapid growth. See you in the next episode.